idea of discipline or consequences should be to get the kid to think about how they might do it differently next time. You know, it's like, do you want your kids to believe you? Yes. And so you have to be believable. How do you become believable? You follow through. This is why we do this thing called giving good gifts to kids, so later you can take it away. Even with ADHD, post-traumatic shock syndrome, oppositional defiance disorder, depression and allergies, you can still get a kid to do it your way. And they need you to structure their environment. They need you to set limits. They need you to set boundaries. They need you to respect their ability to learn and grow. Where you see rebellion, where you see revenge, where you see manipulation is usually an indicator of a child who feels like they have no control in their lives. And it's taken me years and years of learning and applying and learning and applying to really understand that kids do what I do. You know, what makes a family successful is that there's excitement in that family, there's a lot of sharing that goes on in that family, okay? And there's a lot of trust. There's relationship. And in fact, the strength of a consequence is directly related to the strength of the relationship. That's the beauty of parenting, is you always get another shot. If kids don't change, guess what? They're going to do it again tomorrow. And the good news is that you get to try something else, and it'll be fun. I mean, parenting is fun. What happens is you wind up liking your kids, and you wind up liking to spend time with them, and you find that your job as a parent is really the job of a guide. You guide them in ways you think they should go. You give them the opportunity and the freedom to fall on their face as well as the freedom to succeed. And you get through the other end and hope they don't die in the process. It's never too late to change. It's never too late. To learn a new way to look at kids. And I know a million people out there, a billion people would say, kids should just do it because I said so. They should just respect me because I'm the parent. Okay? And that would be nice. Okay? That would be nice in a perfect world. You know, I wish you luck. Okay? But if you've got kids that don't do that, then you have to take a look at what you're doing. And we call that role modeling. And we talked about that last week. What is role modeling? It is kids do what we do. Now, my brother who is living with us, he says to me, I have to ask Eddie 100 times to do something, and he still doesn't do it. And I said, that's because you don't mean it the first time. And when I ask the first time, and I'm a nice guy, so I ask twice. Third request, no matter what, comes with a chore or a consequence, something happens. I don't want to get hassled very much by my kids. So I have 3 opportunities, okay, actually 2. I have the first request, then I have a nice reminder because there's just a tiny bit of a medic in me. And then the third time, it comes with a consequence. So I gave you great examples last week of how that works. Remember Orville and that meat thermometer? Yeah, for those of you who weren't here, Orville's playing in our yard, and he has the meat thermometer out on the deck. I come out, they were measuring the temperature of the hot tub with a meat thermometer, and so I realized if I were to say, who put this out here? And they would all say, I don't know. So I said, did you want me to put away the meat thermometer? And little Orville, his little friend, says, yes, thank you. And my son jumps up out of the sandbox and runs over to that deck going, no! Don't let my dad do your chores ever! And he snatches that meat thermometer, and I'm in perfect slow motion, right? I just love playing these things out with my son. I'm like going to that thermometer, you know, ever so slowly. So he has time to run across the yard and jump 2 valleys in a ditch to get it before I do, okay? So then he gets it. And little Orville, of course, he doesn't know what's going on, but my son knows what's going on. That when I wind up doing things for my son, then he winds up having to balance that out. If I want my son to grow up and take care of himself, I got to take care of myself. That's what role modeling is. And that takes on a whole billion different points of view. And that's the things we're trying to cover here in this short time, is that if I want my child to be respectful, then I got to respect myself. How do I do that? Well, I don't ask 100 times. If I can't believe myself the first time, why do I expect the child to believe it? So I have to follow through. And this is the time-old stuff you've heard a million times before. But when you follow through with creative consequences, and that's probably where this course is valuable, is that we have creative and thoughtful consequences. And when we use one-liners on our kids, little one-liners packed with a lot of information that tells kids what we're going to do as opposed to what they should do, then they get to decide what should they do in this situation. You know, one of the things we say is we tell kids, would you like to hear what other kids have tried? When I first told my son he had to clean the toilet because I was so hassled by his little temper tantrum that all my energy drained out of my feet, and the only thing that would fill me back up is if he did one of my chores. And so he needed to clean the toilet. And so he said, like a good kid, I don't know how. And I said, bummer. Okay? And now, the medic would have been, well, let me show you. And we'd run off and we get the brush and the soap, and we do the whole thing for him, showing them how to do it. Okay? Good medics would do that. I said, bummer. What are you going to do? Because, you know what? Is that my problem? The medic would say, well, yes, it is. He has to know. He has to learn how to clean a toilet, and I have to show him, don't I? Isn't that what a good medic does? And the answer is no. It's not my problem. It's his. So I said, what are you going to do? See, every night when I make that statement, I throw it back at the kid, and he has to look at this problem. And so he said, well, I don't know. And I said, well, what a drag not to know. Would you like to hear what some other kids have tried? So, no. Well, good luck then. If the toilet's not clean, you're going to wind up with 2 chores. And then I walk away. Then he, of course, like a good kid, follows me. Well, what am I supposed to do? And I said, well, why don't you interview your friends? Call them up. I'm sure one of your friends has cleaned a toilet. I'm not going to call anybody. Well, hey, don't. You don't have to call anybody. I'm just giving you ideas. You might go ask Jason. He's in the living room, my oldest son. He's cleaned a lot of toilets in his life. He might have a clue. I'm not asking anybody. I said, well, good luck then. You can solve this any way you want. All I'm concerned about is it gets done. Good luck. Now, that kid is really in what? He's in some turmoil here. One, have I told him he has to clean the toilet? In so many ways I have. But I haven't said, you better clean that toilet, and I mean it. I've said, you need to clean the toilet, no rush. Would you like to hear what some friends have tried? Good luck. What all that does is it gives the kid space and time to consider what's going on and to make some decisions. Okay? So that kid now, what my son did is he went in the living room, he got some information from Jason, and he went in there and cleaned the toilet. And I didn't have to go in there and show him, and I didn't have a great big battle over it. So I try to use a lot of statements and a lot of phrases with my son so that he does most of the thinking. We want him to do the lion's share of the thinking instead of me. Because whoever owns the problem, okay, is the one who's going to solve the problem. That's something you should, put in your head. Whoever owns the problem gets to solve it. And whoever nags the most owns the problem. Okay? So if you find yourself nagging and upset and moaning and complaining, then the problem is you own the problem. So you have to find a way to get it back to the kid. And you do that with various statements. Now, for every problem you solve for a child, okay, you rob them of an opportunity to solve it for themselves. And what we are here doing with kids is we're raising them up and guiding them into adulthood so they can become young adults. And those of you who have teenagers, that's what you're dealing with. Now, the thing is, though, see, the medic feels like she's a bad parent if she doesn't do these things. The medic says, well, it would be remiss of me to not try and heal up these little wounds. But I'll tell you this, the price tag and those little wounds in childhood are just so tiny compared to when you become an adult. And how many adults do I know, and you probably know, who are raising their adult children or their adult children's children? How many of you know that? And you might even be in this room raising your grandkids. Okay? So, my response to that is, you know what? In this household, call us old-fashioned, but we're the kind of people that only want to raise one generation. What do you think will happen, Susie, if you get pregnant? Probably going to welfare? Well, great. I'm wondering what kind of housing you'll do. Because do you think that you're going to live here with your baby? Well, I don't know. Well, give it some thought, because we're not the kind of people that want to raise 2 generations here. Have you thought about adoption? Have you looked into any of that stuff, Susie? Have you considered, what you would do if you got pregnant? I mean, where would your child go? Or were you just thinking foster care for the kid? You don't think we're going to raise it, do you? Now, why are you all looking at me like that? You're scaring me. Like, we all have that, right? So that's me taking care of me. I'm setting standards so that when my kid grows up, and here's how it all comes full circle. When that kid grows up, and she's 18 or 19 years old, and she's got a boyfriend who wants to drain her checking account, who wants to slap her around, and she stays in the relationship. Why? Because she probably had parents that let the kids walk all over them and take care of their problems. So now she grows up and lets other people walk all over her. So if you, and I don't mean this, I'm not coming from a Captain Picard point of view. Please don't misunderstand me. But if you let kids walk all over you, for lack of a better phrase, they will grow up and let other kids or other adults walk all over them. Do you see how that works? So in many ways, when we think that we're doing the right thing for this child, and we sacrifice our Friday nights, we don't go out, or whatever we do that, well, maybe we shouldn't, but I love them, and that's what a good parent does. Okay? When we allow kids to hassle our ears and to walk all over us, then they grow up and let other people do it to them. And that's role modeling. And so, how do you take care of yourself then in a good way? Well, you set limits and boundaries. And that's what we talked about last week. I was thinking about role modeling, and I was thinking about how my mother used to role model for us when we were children. We used to live by these railroad tracks. I really did. I grew up next to railroad tracks. But they were fun. We used to we'd hitch the ride on the boxcars. And now, of course, I think back and I go, my God, what were we doing? Hitching a ride on boxcars and dropping off at the school down at the end of the tracks. In elementary school, we did that. Anyway, it was fun. So we lived by these tracks. And my mom used to, there would be hobos and bums. How many of you remember that kind of scene back in the 60s? There were people who traveled the railroad tracks, regular hobos. Man, I remember they were a part of our lives growing up. My mom used to feed them breakfast. She'd give them donuts, my dad's breakfast when he didn't eat. And she'd send us kids out to these bums with this food. Who would do that today? Exactly. So I sometimes, it's either that was the 60s or I don't know what it was, but it was altruism for sure. It was my mom role modeling doing good things. And so I wrote here, I have this little booklet. It's a different one than the one that's over here, but it says, my mother used to role model altruism and kindness to the bums that walked the railroad track next to our house. Now, in a seminar, somebody pointed out to me that the word bums was politically incorrect. So, in case you run across this, I've rewritten it. Did you want to hear my revision? Okay. It says, my mother used to role model altruism and kindness to the economically disadvantaged persons, okay, who were seeking to enhance their station in life by embracing alternative traveling lifestyles that celebrated many different persons that geographically, though not necessarily coincidentally, were also using the same railroad tracks next to our house. Okay. So that's role modeling. My mom used to role model, and all of us kids are like that. And when I'm driving down the road, I always give money to those guys on I-5, and I think, yeah, they're probably drinking it up. But you know what? If I had that miserable of a life, I'd probably want to drink too. I mean, who wants to stand by an I-5 exit bumming chump change? And I feel like in my life, I've been blessed adequately that I can give a few dollars to somebody who's sitting there begging for money. I don't always do that, but sometimes I do. And one time I had a kid with me, a foster son, and a woman with 3 children on the side of the road. This is it was in Milton, Fife area. And she was sitting with the 3 kids, and I was just, stunned by that. I thought, what are you doing bringing your kids out here? So I stopped and I said, it's really bad role modeling for you to be out here with your kids. I know, sometimes I go where I shouldn't go. Like that cop with the gun, So, so I went and bought her a bag of hamburgers. And the child that was with me, I said, here, you give them to her as we go up. And he had never, ever done anything like this in his life. And he was so like, well, what do I do? I said, first you push the button so the window goes down, okay? And then you say, here's some food. We don't give money, but we do think your kids should eat something. And so that's what we did. And he didn't even say anything. He's like, just stuck his hand out, right? He's like, he's scared. You know, he never gave anything in his life. And so, but later, I heard him telling at least 4 or 5 people in different places how we gave this food to this lady. It was, at the time, it didn't seem very exciting and didn't seem much to me at all. But boy, what an impression that made on him. And that reminded me of my mom feeding the bums next to our railroad tracks. So that's role modeling, and that is carried. Where did I get that? I got that from my mom. I got something else from my mom. It's called the, I'm not telling you again! Okay, that's another thing my mom did. And she was pretty good at it, okay? And so was I. I could scream so loud that my voice was so hoarse, I couldn't even talk, and it was your fault, okay? Now look, I can't even talk. Okay, the bonus. I had a 17-year-old foster son. I've had 43 foster kids adopted too. I've been through to hell and back, okay? Didn't mean to swear, but I just don't know how to describe that place of pain and suffering. That's where I've been with 43 foster kids, and I'm back now, here to tell you that life is possible afterwards. So I had this kid. His name was David, and I'd call him Rocky because that was kind of his personality type. And the same thing. I would say, you need to do this. Now I'm feeling hassled. The only way to make it up is, do a chore for me. And he would, scream obscenities at me, Okay? Right. Oh, I can't hear you. No. Right. I'm not waiting no more. I'm leaving with the car, and you have to walk. Okay. No, so with this kid, I had said to him, I want you to arrange all this stuff down in the basement. I'm giving you an example of how the bonus works. And this is where each child, you have to really think and be creative here. So I said, take all of this stuff over here and put it all over here. So what does he do? He gets a hammer and a nail, and all along the beams in the basement, he hammered all these nails, and he hung everything, about 50 things. And then I go downstairs, and I said, Dave, I didn't want that. I mean, that's really nice of you to organize them like that, but it's kind of like a curtain of tools now we have to go through here. I really want them over there on the bench area. And so he just erupts. Well, great, don't do anything around here and compliment anybody. I do all this stuff, and what do I get? Nothing but criticism. You don't even see any of the good that I do around here. Have you heard that stuff? Right. Okay. So you think your kids are unique? Not at all. I said, it's really hard for me to compliment you when you're doing something that I didn't ask you to do. Now you need to put all these tools back on. I said, well, now I'm really hassled. So when you're done with that, come and see me. So he takes care of it. He comes stomping upstairs. Now, bonus consequence, you have to be fast on your feet. And I said, I'm really hassled. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that right now, but I got to run to the store. I'll be back. So I ran to the store, and I bought taco fixings, and I bought Ben & Jerry's New York Monkey Fudge Trunk whatever ice cream. Okay? And can you guess what he likes for dinner? Tacos and New York Fudge Chunk Super whatever. So I buy all this stuff, and I come home, and my friend Nurse Tammy is over, and so we're going to have tacos and ice cream, and I picked up 3 videos. So now remember he's hassled me severely down there. Okay? So we eat the tacos, and there's the video sitting there, and then I went right up to him and I said, oh, David, oops. Right after dinner, I want you to go to your room because of the hassle you gave me, okay? I don't have to see my freaking I said, well, when you're done with your temper tantrum, that's where you need to be. And then I didn't argue. He finally, after swearing, stomps upstairs, and he goes to his room. And we sat down there, ate the entire thing of ice cream, and watched the videos. Okay? And in the morning, this is bonus 2, kind of like round 2, I left all the dirty fixings in the kitchen for him to clean up. Okay? Yeah, I thought that was a nice touch. Okay? So, another time, see, and this is where he had what I call MIBS syndrome, M-I-B-B-S. It stands for manipulation, intimidation, bullying, breaking things, and smart mouth. Who has MIBS? So if you've got a kid who has MIBs, the one thing you have to understand is that they will use one of those 5 things: manipulation, intimidation, bullying, breaking things, smart mouth. I'll tell you how I first discovered MIBs. I come home when he was relatively new with me, and when you drive through I park in the back, I come through the alley. We have this huge 6-foot picture window, and I can see it from the alley, and all the lights are on. And he can see when I pull in. He can see my car headlights. So I pull in, I get into the yard, and I go in the house, and the lights are off. And it's like, you know, there's a darkened room, and David is like this. Can you get this? Looks like the thinker, doesn't it? I come in, I say, David. Now, mind you, I'd seen the TV on, full living color, right? But now, darkened black room. David, what's wrong? Oh, just thinking. I go, really? About the fall lineup? What, TV, commercials? What, something troubling you? And he looks at me like, this is the greatest look. Huh? What? You ever get that look? Huh? Right. That's manipulation. Well, so I said, David, I saw the TV on when I drove up. Okay. Another time I came home, TV was on, lights were on, but by the time I get in the back door, wouldn't you know it, he's upstairs reading his Bible. Okay? Yeah. And then just as a trick, let me see this. I went, David, I took it out of his hand, I said, it's upside down. And then, of course, he panics, like, because see, if he'd really been reading it, he would have known it wasn't upside down. And I turned it upside down is what I did. I smiled and I said, you would do all that for me? David, I saw the TV on when I drove up. Huh? What? Right. See, another time, he was going to go to Bates College, and I had to pay his tuition. Well, he was having a little fit, and I said, you know what? It's not really my thing, and call me old-fashioned, but I'm not the kind of parent that likes to pay tuition for kids who hassle me like this. So if you don't want to do whatever ABC was, then I don't feel like writing this check for your tuition. But whenever you feel like working with me, let me know. So, and now, am I telling him what to do? Am I controlling anything in his life? No, I am actually controlling what I can control, and that is my checkbook. I don't have to pay for tuition. In fact, the nice thing about living at home is that education is free when you live at home. So I say to my 11-year-old, the nice thing about 5th grade at your school is that they offer it every year. Okay? There's no rush when you want to get done. I mean, I don't know. Call me old-fashioned, but I would think you'd just want to get through it, but maybe you're different. Good luck. Because I can't win that battle. Can I win that school battle? Not at all. Okay? Another thing that David used to do, he'd call me Dad. He said, can I call you Dad? Because you're like the only person that's really a dad to me. And I went, you know what? You've got 2 dads, and I don't think a third would help you at all. You can call me Maurice. Or Mr. Lacunza, if you will. Okay, I didn't say that. But that was more manipulation. Okay? And my own son, before I adopted him, he would sit at the table stirring the food. I shared with this last week. And I would just, how many of you get upset at the dinner table? Right? None of you? All right, Chris, wrong room. So I used to get upset, eat a little bit of this, eat a little bit of that, you know, and do that whole routine. And then I finally came to the realization, did you get enough to eat? Yeah. Great, then run along and do whatever it is kids do after dinner. And then at 8 o'clock, then he says, I'm hungry, and we say, remember when I asked you, did you get enough to eat at dinner? What was your answer? Yes. Great, then you're covered. We'll see you at breakfast. And they say, but I'm hungry now. And you say, I'm sure you are. And we'll make a really big breakfast just for you. Run along. Well, that's starvation. You know, you can't, you have to feed me. And you say, I offered food at 6 o'clock. What a drag that you didn't eat it, because that's what it's like for me when I don't eat. Get these hunger pains right here. But you know what? There's good news. You don't die from that. Okay? And that's good news for the medic, in case the medic is worried that the kid's going to die in the night. Okay? They won't die, so you don't have to worry about that. All right, so what we're talking about here now is kids are going to manipulate. So if your kid isn't following through, the reason he's putting up such a fuss is that he knows how to control her the old way. And now she's changing the rules of the game, and he's not going to go down easy. But I'll bet a couple of you have kids who are taking this much more nicely. I'm going to pick battles that I think I need to win. So I have him practice making the bed a few times, and then when we get it down, we say, good job, thank you. And then we move on. So the next time I say, you know, that bed needs to get made, okay, he's going to remember, oh yeah, that practice session. Maybe we don't want to do that. Okay? Kids come into a room making a bunch of noise. We say, excuse me, you know, you need to say excuse me when you interrupt adults. And they say, well, okay. I said, no, let's practice. And we'll stop. I'll make them leave the room. We'll engage in conversation. The kid will come in and go, excuse me. And then I'll go, yes. And this, may I? I go, thank you for excusing yourself. Yes, you may. It's like I rewind life. Bzzz, okay? And then we practice it. Did I tell you about little Bob and Jason at the dinner table? How you sit at dinner like this? If you're a boy of 6 years old, this is how you come to dinner and eat, right? Does this ever happen in your house? Ever? Never. And that's what Bob said. But how come for 6 years, every night, this is how his son comes to the table? Little Jason sits like this, and Bob, as a good parent, says what? Sit right. Okay, right. I was reading your mind. It's okay. So finally, after much fighting and screaming, I said sit right! Little Jason sits right. And everybody's miserable, and dinner sucks. It's a bad, terrible time. Okay, because this happens every night. Bob has to get angry and yell before Jason will listen to him. Why do I have to yell like this every time? Why can't you just listen once? Do you have a brain in your head? Some of us look for it. Okay. Okay, and you're going to learn there's always good news, guess what, and good luck. Okay, 3 G's. Okay. So he says, good news. What? Well, from now on, kids who come to the dinner table and sit like this get to eat dinner. And kids who sit like this get to run along and play as if they had dinner. I'll be anxious to see what you decide. Now, little Jason has Mib syndrome, right? So what's a good little manipulator do? He comes to dinner. See, Bob's the kind of parent who's giving information. Okay? He's not telling Jason how he should eat. Just like you can't tell a teen what to do. You give information. And you control things you can control. So little Bob or Jason comes to the table and he sits like this. Now Bob has a choice to make. What's he going to do? Is he going to rant and rave and rescue and warn about the next time and how much he really means it? No. He gets up and he says, oh, Jason, I see you've decided not to join us for dinner. Takes the plate. Well, you run along now and do whatever it is kids do after dinner. And now, what does little Jason say? But I'm hungry. I'm sure you are. And not to worry, we'll make a really big breakfast just for you. Now, that's a creative, caring consequence, right? And now, the next night, Bob says, and this was after a full month of being in this church, the next night and thereafter, little Jason would come to the table and sit like this. Never another fight again at that dinner table. And he said to me, I can't believe this. 6 years I've been fighting with this kid. 6 years since he could hold a fork. I have been fighting almost every single night. And I can't believe how one consequence could make such a difference. And it can. And that's the whole point here, is that you're not going to solve every problem that comes along. And that's something that even Counselor Troy realizes, that she can't solve everything that comes her way. Though she's a great empathic person, she's not going to solve everybody's troubles, and she doesn't try to. She gives information. One of the 3 things about a good family is relationship. You know, what makes a family successful is that there's excitement in that family, there's a lot of sharing that goes on in that family, okay, and there's a lot of trust. There's relationship. And in fact, the strength of a consequence is directly related to the strength of the relationship. So you have to have good relationship with your kid for them to want to change and go along with you. Though they say, you don't love me, that's just manipulation. You don't buy into it. You say, sorry that you feel that way. How sad that you would think that, because I love you lots. And with the kid in a classroom where you can't take them home and give them chores, okay? then you say things like, you pull them aside and you say, what can we do to make this better for me? And you can do this at home too. I've done this with my Jason when he was 17. I'd say, what can we do, Jason, to make me feel better about this? This is really, quite a hassle, and I'd like to make things better. What can we do to solve this? And then we can open up some dialogue. But you have to have relationship. And in the classroom, you have to work on that. And one of the things you do with kids like that, and you may even work this at home as well, is you notice the kid. You notice things about them. If all the teacher said, hey, I noticed you're wearing cowboy boots. I wear cowboy boots. Hey, I noticed that you wore that red whatever. I've got one of those. So you don't really say that's good or bad. You just notice things about a kid. And if you do that consistently with your most troubled child in this school, you'll find that kid starts to change. Because what you're doing is you're engaging a relationship. You're building a relationship. And that has to happen with your own kids. You got to be fun to be around. There's a speaker I saw on late night TV the other night that says that if you ever say, well, I'm bored, you as a parent, then her response is that's then probably because you're boring. Okay? So in families where it's boring, that's not a good sign. Okay? Families should be exciting. Families should be, full of sharing. We're doing things together. So when kids say they're bored, you might want to say, that's too bad, because bored kids means, that you might be kind of boring. What we can do to change that? Maybe we should go somewhere and do something. Let's go down to the ocean. Let's go here. Let's go there. Let's go do something. So we do things together and we share things together. So again, that comes back to building relationship, because the strength of the consequence is directly related to the strength of the relationship. So it's very important. Kids change because they want to please you. They change because of mature guilt. And that mature guilt is really where the child wants to change the behavior as opposed to feeling bad, which we call shame. Prior to age 7 or so, kids have shame instead of the desire to change, which is guilt. Guilt is a good thing, okay? Do you know what the average quality time spent between a parent and a child is in a week? How many minutes of quality time? Not quantity, quality moments. And that's defined by various methods of research. Give or take a point here and there. But the average time is 7 minutes a week. And do you know what couples spend in a week? 14. That's scary. Okay, that's real scary. Because spending time with your kids is important, quality time. And that's not defined as watching TV or, those kinds of activities. But if you stop and think about it, parents come home from work, they're tired, they don't want to be hassled, they come home to a dirty house. It's like, why is this house a mess? You kids have been here all day, you could clean it up. I come home, I just want to put my feet up, I'm tired of it, I hate my job, and now I have to come home and deal with this crap. Okay? And then we go from there. That's how we start running for the night. Then we have to get dinner ready, and then we got to watch TV, and then we got to get the kids in bed. And then we start over in the morning. So it's easy to lose time because we get so busy running our lives, we forget to make time. And we have to do it.